Hey guys, today I'm going to share with you one of my favorite recipes for a Sunday night dinner. It's my 4-generation spaghetti and meatball recipe. Now I call this my 4-generation recipe because it has been passed down to me through 3 generations of favorite Italian women in my life. It started with my great-grandmother, Big Nonna. So they used to call her Big Nonna because she was the matriarch of the family, and Nonna in Italian means grandmother. Then she passed the recipe on to her daughter, Pauline, my grandmother, who we used to call Nonnie. Now I love this picture of her and my grandfather on their honeymoon in Bermuda in the 20s. They just look so elegant and happy in this picture. Unfortunately, I never got to meet Nonnie. She died right before I was born. However, my father always tells me that I remind him so much of her. She loved to cook and entertain and throw fabulous parties, and I think if she was alive today, we would have a lot in common. And then she passed the recipe down to her daughters, my 3 aunts, Aunt Nancy, Aunt Joy, and Aunt Mallory. And I have had the great pleasure of knowing all 3 of these amazing women in my life. They've known me since I was a baby, and it was really fun talking with each of them to find out the basis of this recipe. So first we're going to make our own homemade tomato sauce. Tomato sauce is one of those things that, in my opinion, you should always make homemade. It's so easy to do, and it's going to taste 10 times better than that stuff you're going to buy in a jar. Trust me. Let's take out a big stock pot. You're going to add some diced tomatoes. It takes about 9 cups because we are feeding a crowd, and this makes for great leftovers too. So don't be concerned if it looks like a lot. And then here's where I break with family tradition. So I love garlic, so I am going to add 2 cloves of garlic to my tomato sauce. This is my little contribution to this recipe. However, in talking to my Aunt Joy, she told me that their family never used garlic in tomato sauce, and they really weren't big fans of garlic in any of the recipes they used to make. And we sort of giggled. She said, you know, garlic, it's a real romance killer. And they were one of 5 kids, so there could be something to that. However, I am very happy with my 2 lovely children, so I'm gonna add some garlic. You're going to give that a simmer, and then we are going to let that cook down for at least 20 to 30 minutes. I know that sounds like a long time, but we have got work to do. We got to make our meatballs, and while that's simmering, it's also going to sweeten up those tomatoes and help the sauce thicken, so not to worry. Now, you guys are going to love these meatballs. They are delicate, they are soft, they are delicious. They are not those heavy meatballs that we have all had at those Italian restaurants where you get a big plate of spaghetti and meatballs and you feel like a ton of bricks have hit your stomach. That is not this. One of the reasons that makes them so light is we are going to add bread instead of breadcrumbs to our recipe. Now, this is a technique that dates back to Big Nonna. According to Aunt Nancy, this was something that she used to always do, and I have found that it works so much better than breadcrumbs for getting a really nice light meatball. And then we are going to add 1/3 cup of milk. I know this sounds strange, but I'm telling you, this is the secret. You have got to do this step, so trust me on this one. We're gonna let that sit just for about 5 minutes because we want that milk to soak into all that bread. Now, traditionally in Italian cooking, Italians like to mix 3 different types of meats for when they're making meatballs or lasagna, and traditionally it ends up being beef, pork, and veal. However, it can be really hard sometimes to find veal in supermarkets, especially American supermarkets. So my Aunt Nancy told me what she does is she actually swaps out the veal for turkey. And that is a really great idea. It tastes just the same, it's less expensive, and it's so much easier to get. Instead of ground pork, my other little twist that I like to do is to actually use Italian sausage, because it's basically ground pork with a bunch of spices inside. You just need to remove it from the casing, or you can buy it in bulk, whatever your supermarket offers, and add it to the bowl as well. Add 2 eggs. This is going to help bind our meatballs together, and a cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. And then you're also going to add 1/3 cup of freshly minced flat leaf parsley. I love the parsley because it gives a wonderful freshness to these meatballs. Add some freshly cracked pepper, a little bit of salt. And you're going to add 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning. I love the Italian seasoning because it has a bunch of dried herbs all in one jar. So it'll save you money having to go out and get a bunch of different spices. And then we're also going to add 1.5 teaspoons of fennel seeds. Now the fun part, how are we going to mix this all up? Well, the best way to really do it is with our hands. Make sure your hands are clean, don't be squeamish. It really is the best way to make sure that all those meats are incorporated with the egg and the cheese and the bread. I just roll up my sleeves and I think of Big Nonna because I am sure this is how she did it and every woman who came after her. So roll up your sleeves, get in there, and just mix it all up with your hands. Now, here's the good news with this recipe. You do not need to sit at the stovetop and start frying these meatballs one at a time. That always makes a big mess, and it always sets off my fire alarm too, which really freaks out my kids. Instead, I like to just put these in the oven and bake them. It's really great because they all cook at the same time. You don't have any big mess you have to clean up. But before we put them in the oven, we are going to add one more secret ingredient. And this idea came from my Aunt Mallory, who told me this was something my grandmother Nani used to do. She would take a little cube of provolone cheese and insert it right into the center of the meatball. When I heard that idea, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I must try that immediately. And I did, and I have to tell you, it's the only way to eat a meatball. So now that is standard operating procedure in our house. You must have cheese in a meatball. We're gonna pop them in a 400-degree oven until they're cooked all the way through. That should take anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. So while our meatballs are in the oven, we can get on with boiling our pasta. Now, the Italians will tell you that the water you boil your pasta in should taste like the sea, meaning it needs to be well salted. And I definitely agree. I think salted water really helps to bring out the flavor of your pasta. Then when the meatballs are done, you can go ahead and take them out of the oven, and we are going to actually place them in our sauce, which is the other nice thing you can do, because that will then get all of those juices from the meatballs marrying with the tomato sauce and is really a great combo. But before we do that, we want to add some freshly chopped basil. I love to use the fresh basil in tomato sauce like this because it just makes your sauce feel really fresh and gourmet. It's just a wonderful thing to add. To serve, we're going to portion out some spaghetti in some bowls, top with that beautiful homemade tomato sauce, and then I like to add one or two of those succulent meatballs on top. Garnished with a little freshly grated Parmesan cheese, and if you really want to send this dinner over the edge, you will serve this with some homemade garlic bread. If you want to know how to make homemade garlic bread, it's really easy to do, and I've shared my recipe in the description. And there you have it, a classic spaghetti and meatball dish coming from 4 generations of Italian women. I hope you guys give this one a try and let us know what you think. I also hope one day that my daughters grow up and put their own spin on this recipe, because then we'll have a 5-generation spaghetti and meatball recipe. That will really be something to see. All right, you guys, I will see you back here next week when we're gonna bring back the real-time recipe. I'm gonna show you how to put dinner on the table in 15 minutes or less. I'll see you then. Bye.